Metal Gear Solid 5 left me cold, glacial levels of disappointment, and I really didn't want to be coming here to tell you guys that. I wanted to come back here and talk about how legendary Kojima's final entry into the series is before he got kicked out the door for good. I love the Metal Gear Solid franchise, and to see the final game in the saga be such a massive letdown saddens me to no end. Back when Ground Zeroes came out, I had a lot of misgivings towards the direction the franchise was taking, but as the release of Phantom Pain got closer, I started getting hyped with how cool the new trailers were looking. Nah, come on, this is Metal Gear Solid 5, it's gonna be fucking awesome, look at this, I mean, what the is happening? But the game wasn't just the unnecessary entry in the series I speculated it might be, it was worse. In this previous video, I mused about the necessity for a new Metal Gear when 4 ended it so well. Whether the continued adventures of Big Boss were worth telling when they were rounded out so well in MGS3. Whether the game we were gonna get might just end up being a rather stale experience. And you know, I wasn't completely right about all those things being the case. MGS5 is also repetitive, unfinished, horribly paced, and the most unimaginative entry the series has seen. I think it's time I cleared up something about my video on Ground Zeroes. When I said that Phantom Pain is pointless because we already know what happens to all the characters and yet MGS3 was a great prequel, I meant that in the sense that MGS3 at least told a story we couldn't just infer already. Back before Snake Eater, we didn't know why Big Boss became the villain he was in the first 2 Metal Gears or much about him at all, so seeing that story play out was interesting. Then MGS3 ended perfectly tying into MG1 with the creation of Foxhound and leaving on a perfect note. The government made this guy kill like his best friend. You can totally see from this how he'd become such a dodgy bloke. And then that credits theme kicks in and it's like, holy shit, this is perfect. There was no need for a bunch of sequels giving us info that turned out to be mostly irrelevant, because just how unnecessary these games are far outweighs any goofy little moment they do slightly well. And does Phantom Pain tell a story worth telling? Well, obviously, to justify the game's existence, there are some retconny twists in here. But overall, even the things it could have done to make the game worthwhile, it completely glosses over in favor of a story about this lame asshole and Kojima's new waifu. The one thing that could have made it worth the time would be elaborating on Zero as the main antagonist of the series, because that major twist came out of nowhere and was extremely hard to buy to begin with. That your comedy sidekick from MGS3 turned out to be the mastermind behind the series. But no, it barely gets touched upon. The relationship between Big Boss and Liquid, that could have been interesting. Nothing really happens though. The game doesn't even elaborate much on Big Boss's villainy. I mean, as I said, the series didn't have to after 3's ending, but you might as well have made him become more of a to justify his later actions. Why am I collecting heroism points in a game about being Big Boss? The minute-to-minute gameplay of the Phantom Pain feels like a chore, and that sucks because if there's one thing you gotta give Metal Gear as a series is how every moment something mad is happening. Everything you do in these games affected the main story, and it was just level after level after scene after scene after scenario of this stuff. In Phantom Pain, most of the missions are just for shits and gigs. Why am I blowing up these tanks? Why am I saving this guy? Why do I care about this intel? Nothing to do with the story, Kaz just told me to do this stuff, I guess. This makes any of the bullshit moments come across that little bit more frustrating, and trust me, Phantom Pain is some of the most annoying sections in the series. Metal Gear's always had hits and misses in the gameplay department, but at least when something was getting on your tits in the last games, you knew that afterwards there would be some mad payoff. Here, whenever I was getting frustrated, I knew that all that would happen is I would get put back on the chopper and Kaz would tell me what I did was totally really important, but you know, who cares? If I was blowing the shit out of things for 15 minutes in the previous games, it was because Raiden was ninja fighting some vampire and needed some backup so we could activate Rex, not just because, some guys asked us to do it. I mean, say what you want about MGS4, but I was giddy every 5 minutes in that game. Moment after moment of frenzied antics, all my questions and desires being addressed. In Phantom Pain, I was giddy for about a minute when a 20-second cutscene randomly appeared, and then it was back to being bored for 5 hours as Kaz dropped me in an unskippable chopper ride again. Not to mention you have to watch the same credits over and over again that usually spoil the characters that are gonna be in the mission. I mean, this is like if MGS2 made you play a bunch of VR missions for no reason in between relevant scenarios, made you cross empty terrain before every level and had you sit down and wait while nothing happened every time you wanted to do something. Yeah, I'm sure the game would have been improved with all that stuff. And maybe I wouldn't mind so much if the gameplay was blowing my mind, but after infiltrating my first few out in the open settlements in the wilderness, I was getting pretty bored. There are a bunch of weapons, but you're limited to like 3 at a time, so the nuts-on-the-fly arsenal of MGS4 is gone. You don't get nothing cool like a doll that possesses enemies. I mean, why would you? You can just run up to everyone and hit R and instantly knock them out. I mean, there are things to experiment with here, but outside of vehicles, it's nothing really that wild we haven't seen before. Plus, when everything is such a drag to get and my objectives so pedestrian, I have no motivation to run around crafting elaborate schemes to flirt my way into another Outback guard post. You have some buddies to order around, but that doesn't doesn't change much about the game except how easy you want enemies to get killed without your involvement. Or how much you want to make traversing the empty waste slightly less time-consuming. Just because the game is open world now for some reason doesn't mean this is some epic mega game, especially when there's only 2 levels. Oh, so now instead of doing the level, I have to traverse an empty wasteland before doing the level. Progress! They're big, but outside of the settlements the devs decided to place by chucking darts at an empty square of terrain, it's basically just wasted space. Look at all the places I can pick to land. Except why would I pick any entrance point except the one closest to the mission? There are only a few select locations that feel like they had any real design to them. The rest doesn't come anywhere close to a lot of open world titles already on the market. It's not like there's anybody to meet out here, or locations that offer a breadth and diversity to the gameplay that would justify an open world setup, such as challenges that deviate from the core mechanics of just slipping into places to press pick up on things. Is an open world stealth game a good idea? Like, do I want to be exploring vast open environments where the only 2 states of play are not detected or getting bombarded from every angle? Not that there's all that much incentive to explore anyway, as I said, so why is this game even open world? What you do in Phantom Pain just isn't as interesting as previous titles. Boss fights are completely omitted for the most part. People thought the B&B core were disappointing in 4, well holy shit. Here we get hide from sniper cursor and rock bullet sponges. Great job, guys. Seriously, the B&B are like legends now compared to this. All those tricks Laughing Octopus would play on you before like trying to grab you all creepy in a skin-tight outfit, making you question what she really is. Then Drebin tells you a f***ed up story about her, putting into context the horrors of war. That shit is on like a whole other level to these jokers. Bringing up the bosses from older Metal Gear games wouldn't be favorable either. I mean, there's not even a final boss. Think about Metal Gear for a second. All of them have legendary final bosses. All of them. Legendary. And then PP is like, well, this is the final chapter. I guess the game ends here. Whoops. No climax for you. Not that fighting the only real boss fight again for a second time in some of the cut content would have made up for this much. I mean, not even the supposed ending they didn't put in the game is that climactic anyway. The boss fights that are here don't really feature any of the ingenuity or clever tricks that the actual bosses from the series' legacy had. Oh wow, QuickTime events. Yeah, best gameplay in the series, guys. I mean, it's not just about how deep the player's mechanics are. You also have to take into account the mechanics the enemies have. And everybody here is either a regular guy with armor, a few guys and walkers, and some bullet sponges that turn guys into zombies. Yeah, zombies, real original, guys. There are no enemies as cool as the Gecko from MGS4 and all their different variants. It's actually incredible that for a game with so much padding, they still felt the need to make the last third of the game about redoing older missions on hard to get the last few real levels. This isn't even Devil May Cry 4 levels of bad. At least in DMC4 there was a completely new character to play as and it wasn't balls to the wall aggravating. I didn't enjoy the first half of the game, so when Chapter 2 appears and loads of hype shit was going down in this preview vid, I was like, yeah, now things are gonna get started. But no, it's all just copy and pasted nonsense. Such a great lead up to the end of the Metal Gear series, repeating the same levels again and again and rescuing kids from a tower surrounded by bears. Epic. I spent most of my time in the second half trying to make a balloon for this kid, and then you click to make it and the game's like, why? Phantom Pain just keeps putting up fences to progression. Maybe I could have gotten my balloon earlier if I'd gone on all the fetch quest side ops. But when the main missions already feel like a grind, the last thing I want to do is do a bunch of crap with even less thought put into it. The game also buckles to too many modern trends. So you start the game and immediately it's like, oh. You sit in bed, then you walk down a hallway by pressing forward while condescending tutorials play out in front of you. One of the things I loved about MGS is that despite people bemoaning the series for its ample use of long-ass cutscenes, when it came to being in the actual game, you were in the game. But here we get this hour-long opening of scripted segments, and it's just tedious as hell. Theoretically in MGS, you can be in gameplay all the time because, you know, cutscenes are skippable. Even MGS4, a game everybody gets frustrated about being too verbose and having an overabundance of story, lets you have full control the second you hit gameplay. But MGS5 jumps right into the obnoxious tendency of having you walk forward to combine narrative and gameplay in the worst way possible. Which probably led into one of the most awkward moments in MGS history. The Jeep ride. So the nefarious Skullface is just talking to Snake on a Jeep, and then that awesome music from the trailer kicks in, and I'm sitting there like, is this supposed to be like super epic? because it's like the stupidest thing I've ever seen. This is how they use this music, not in an intense, meaningful moment, but to pass the time on a boring Jeep ride. At least this one you can actually skip, and I recommend it. We also have regenerating health now, which, like with most modern titles, turns this game into a silly dash to run away and hide every 5 minutes when in combat, instead of consumable health items keeping one in the action at all times. I've got to say they did a fab job at marketing this game, because I was getting so hyped as the trailers were coming out near to release. But then I played the game and it's like they squeezed every little drop of substance from the cutscenes and stuck it in the trailers, because there's nothing else apart from what was already shown. I guess a little less considering the scenes that were removed. Lines in the trailer that sounded amazing and I couldn't wait to receive context for, most of them are just in cassette tapes. And I guess while we're on the topic of the story, my old spoiler corner, skip to the time if you don't want to know. Let's talk about Skullface. What a letdown of a villain. They hype this guy up in trailers for years and then he turns out to be one of the most underwhelming bad guys the series has ever seen. So I have this virus that can wipe everybody I want to out whenever I want to? Oh no, but my one mistake, I built a robot that stepped on me. Whoops. Yeah, you see, I totally needed that robot because it was gonna be mega spooky and the whole world was gonna freak out. I really hate Zero. He's a dick. Maybe I should not have trusted the demon child psychic powered by hate I have no reason to know can be trusted. Oh well, I'm burning up, whatever. Oh wow, Liquid is in phantom pain. This is gonna be hype. Oh no, he's leaving and we cut the final mission, so that whole plot gets dropped. Hope you didn't see the trailers and think that because Liquid got in a Metal Gear that would mean you'd actually get to fight him in it. Or see him use it. At all. Damn, these scenes in the trailer where Snake is walking through this hellish corridor no doubt will have some mad impact on the story and the characters. Oh, it's just some self-contained cinematic level where you walk around and shoot some terminally ill people. Guess I'm a demon now. Oh, I can't wait to see Zero in a Metal Gear game as a villain. He sounds so awesome in the trailers. Oh, he's not in the game. He's just in some tapes. Oh, is this supposed to be Psycho Mantis? I mean, it can't be, right? I mean, if he's in Phantom Pain on PS4, how does he not know what a hard drive is in MGS4? Why even pretend anything's gonna happen to Huey, guys? He has to be alive for the other games, so of course he's gonna get shipped off. At the start of the game, I was under the impression Ocelot acting so goddamn boring when he's frickin' mental in all the other games would lead into some kind of mad twist about why he's suddenly the voice of reason. But no, I like Kaz in this game because he always just wants to fuck everybody up. So it's weird when Ocelot, celebrated sadist of this series, is like, oh no, you should calm down, bro. And Kaz just has this face like, really, motherfucker? I mean, I guess he's not as boring as the girl who says nothing for most of the game. Such a deep character, that one. Oh, I was gonna infect everybody and get my revenge, but then I realized I really wanted this guy's dick. Phantom Pain has the worst way of telling its story in the entire series. Everything feels so awkwardly done. The major twists and emotional moments rarely play into the overarching story. Instead, they usually play out isolated from the rest in horrible little chunks, lending little impact to the overall game. So many scenes try and hit you with the big boss feels, but it all falls flat. The episodic nature of the content means it will have no real lasting effect on any of the characters next time they decide to chat to Snake, unlike previous games where events could invoke permanent changes in the cast. The major final twist isn't worked into the narrative or the development of the characters, instead it's just told to the player in an out-of-context chapter with no effect on anything. It's like the game is saying, okay, we need to stop, so here's the twist, bye! And the chapter in question is just another older chapter you replay with a little more knowledge of what's happening. This just doesn't feel like Metal Gear at all. Is that why Kojima's name's not on the cover? Did he remove it because he was embarrassed? I got so tired of doing the same thing mission after mission with no payoff for any of it. Tag some guys, walk into place, grab thing, leave place, hit circle to pick up materials, set pickup point, run there for a while, wait on chopper. You know, when I played MGS as a kid, my thoughts were never, man, I wish I was in the desert running around attaching balloons to people as a mute asshole. Metal Gear Solid always had a lot of story, and that story was awesome, and it was complemented by just as awesome gameplay. Here we have mediocre gameplay and soulless thin plot badly told. And that just isn't Metal Gear no matter how you cut it. And it makes me so sad because Metal Gear was one of those franchises that hadn't been ruined yet. It was so good, and to see it go out on this when it already had such a great climax, it's just sad. This is one of the most disappointing games I've played since Metroid Other M, and I'm not joking about that. I hate to say it, but fact is, when Konami make their next non-Kojima Productions Metal Gear, in the back of my mind I'll be thinking, at least it can't be as bad as the Phantom Pain.